This is the first time in recorded history we've had the whole entire world on halt or on a pause. And if we are going to wake up, I think we need a wake-up call. And stepping into a place where there is uncertainty, we are stepping from what we know. Everything that's we know about ourselves and our lives is being challenged, and we're stepping into the unknown because every day it's more and more difficult to predict what's going to happen. And if you can't predict it, we're stepping out of familiar territory. And I'd like to see this as an opportunity for people to break from the normal routine of their lives. I mean, the entire world has been disrupted from their normal personal reality. They're not going to the same places and seeing the same people and doing the exact same things at the exact same time. They're in a little mini retreat in the comfort of their own home. And if change, the idea of change means to be greater than your environment, to be greater than your body, and to be greater than time, this is a perfect opportunity to meet the challenges in our lives from a greater level of consciousness. And so it would be wonderful if you made the choice to not be victimized by these circumstances, no matter how challenging they are. And when we allow certain conditions or certain people or certain circumstances in our life to cause us to feel and think certain ways, and someone says, why are you upset or why are you unhappy? And you say, I'm unhappy because of the news, or I'm unhappy because of the current circumstances in my life, what you're unconsciously agreeing to is that something in your outer world is controlling your state of being, the way you think and feel. But our message is the way you think and feel produces outcomes in your life. So when you start applying those principles and you see that somehow you are creating some events in your life, every time you have a synchronicity or an opportunity or a serendipity, it's proof that you're beginning to align to a new future. So what a great opportunity to fill your brain with information and knowledge. You have the luxury of doing it in the comfort of your own home. So many people have fantasized about not going to work, and the whole entire world is working from home if they still have the privilege of work. And I just see it as a great opportunity to ask ourselves, who are we going to emerge as when this is all over, and who are we going to be? And you could go through this whole entire thing unchanged, or you can emerge from a different level of consciousness and awareness. And for me personally, I refuse to be victimized by these circumstances. And I think also people have to develop more of a intimate understanding and relationship with their body. I mean, we have an incredible innate intelligence in our body that really is constantly fighting viruses and bacteria, and just a little love, just a little gratitude, just a little inspiration. Our research shows that your immune system gets stronger. So if you're fearful, then you're actually weakening your own self to be more susceptible to those conditions in your environment. So it's a wake-up call. We have to understand to a greater degree that we are more unlimited than what we're told, that we have to change our beliefs, that if we live in fear of something getting us, what we fear has power over us. And when we're in that emotional state, we give it a lot of our attention, and where you place your attention is where you place your energy. So we have to be greater than our environment. We have to be greater than the normal unconscious programs that we don't have the power to heal in our body. And we have the time now, the luxury of time, to be more in the present moment to get better at it. That our research shows that when you begin to teach people how to open this center, and you teach them a formula on how to practice it, that if they did that for 4 days, that
they would begin to strengthen their immune system by 50%. And now let me tell you why. Because in the center is your heart, but what most people don't know, there's another gland in there called the thymus gland. Thyme leaf, it's named after the thyme leaf. And the thymus gland has two functions. It has an endocrinological function. It makes growth hormone. That's our youth center. And it makes strong immune chemicals, and it has an immunological function. So when you're living by stress and your heart is racing and you're stepping on the gas and the brake at the same time because you can't run, you can't fight, you can't hide, and you got the gas and the clutch going, energy is going to leave the heart and it's going to the adrenal center, and you're going to cause contraction in the arteries in your heart, and this center will shut down from blood flow. And so there's no energy in the heart. So you teach a person then how to begin to open the center and to start feeling elevated emotions through their heart. And you teach them how to switch or convert from the sympathetic nervous system to the parasympathetic nervous system. Well, all of a sudden now, this thymus gland, which normally shrinks with age, starting at puberty, the fountain of youth now, all of a sudden begins to get new blood flow. And there's new hormones that are signaled, like oxytocin and vasopressin, and all these different chemicals called nitric oxide and endothelial-derived relaxing factor, and the arteries in the heart begin to swell with energy and blood flow, and this center switches on, and now it says, man, this feels good, and this is a time for us to really get back into balance, and really let's strengthen our inner world now. And now all of a sudden, this thymus gland begins to make thymosin, which is an important agent that begins to make T cells. And T cells have little receptors on them called T cell receptors. And when those T cell receptors are robust and strong, those cells make proteins, and they make what's called antibodies or immunoglobulins. And these little Y-shaped proteins block the receptors coming from the virus that are trying to attack the white blood cells. They have a shield, and now they're immune to the virus and its attack with its receptor, and it can literally begin to inject it with these immunoglobulins, primary immunoglobulin A, and that begins to cause the virus to not survive. And then that white blood cell will pass another white blood cell and pass on the memory to it, so it already knows what's coming. So now all of a sudden you're making these immunoglobulins, and now your inner world now can combat anything that's a foreign agent, and even cancer cells.
So are you saying, is it possible that we can build our immune system so strong and our body so strong that we would reject viruses?
Your body rejects viruses all the time. Of course. It has memorized certain viruses that you've been exposed to. It has memorized certain bacteria that you've been exposed to, and it's beaten those viruses. Not every virus wins in the body. The body has an intelligence, and it has quite a library of memories in the white blood cells. So your body is fighting viruses and bacteria all the time. There's a constant competition going on.
Really?
So our research shows that 4 days of opening your heart releases immunoglobulin A, your body's primary defense against bacteria and viruses. It's better than the flu shot. It's the body's natural flu shot. And that's the innate intelligence of the body saying, I got this, I got a lot of energy. In fact, I got a surplus of energy. In fact, I'm radiating energy, and now
too much energy.
Outer world. Now my outer world is not controlling my inner world. My inner world now is functioning independent of what's going on in my outer world. And now
you're manifesting.
Now you got it. Now you're in a creative state.
People are coming to you. Yes.
Right, exactly. Now you're a magnet. Now you have a field, right? And you have energy to heal. And our research shows that field around your body will actually expand. You radiate more light and information. Cells are getting new information that are causing light to be exchanged between cells and information. Now the body's getting an upgrade. So that immunoglobulin A in 4 days went up 50%. So now we know that if it's going up 50%, that then the immune system was getting a new signal. And nitric oxide then causes another chemical to activate the arteries in your heart to swell. And now, just like when energy moves into your sexual organs and it swells with blood and you have energy there, the same intensity, it moves into your heart. And now the heart is activated. And what do you feel? You feel an incredible amount of love. Yeah, and
love.
you feel whole. And now the more whole you feel, our research shows, then the less separate you feel from the things you want in your life, because you feel like you already have them. You only want things when you're in lack, but when you feel whole, then it feels like it's already happened. And that tends to be the exact emotion that causes those synchronicities and serendipities and coincidences to happen in our life. And you say to a person, what are you doing? And they're saying, I'm not doing anything. I'm just so
loving
happy.
life. I'm being myself.
Right.
Exactly.
I'm free from the past. I'm free from my story of the past. In fact, I'm more connected to the energy of my future than I am to the energy of my past. I'm believing in my future more than I'm believing in my past. In fact, I'm more in love with my future than I am with my past. And I want to keep telling the story of the future.
Yes, I think, when people have this fear of death, they just don't know what it looks like. And every religion that I've studied, and I don't spend a lot of time studying religion, but I have, through my own curious nature, looked at several religions throughout my life, and every religion talks about this concept of being eternal. Whether what religion it is, either you go to heaven, you go to hell, you go there for eternity. You're on the wheel of karma, you're on that wheel for eternity. You're in nirvana, it's eternity. So this concept that we are consciousness, that we're an awareness, and energy never is lost in the universe. I think that if we embrace the idea that we are eternal, and this is just a wink in eternity, then the question is, am I all in? Am I gonna go all in at this time in history? And this is a time in history, by the way, where we have all the practice that we have done in our own work, all of the knowledge we've learned, all the meditations, all the transformations, all the inquiries, all the pushing ourselves past our limits, all the training and practice of heart coherence, brain coherence, is for times like these. These are the times where it matters the most. Now you have tools to self-regulate. You have tools. So changing your relationship with the understanding of death. Death is not a failure or the end. It's just a transition. So I just feel like when we confront that and we have a good conversation about it, and we really find the answers about it, I think we're more prone to be less fearful in our lives, and I think that's important.
How do you get that person out of their past?
Yeah.
Well, we need a week. It's not going to happen.
You mean it doesn't happen overnight?
No, I want them to come right up against their fear. I want them to come right up against their doubt. I want them to come up against the point where they're going to give up and quit. And they're going to sit there and nobody else is giving up and quitting. And they're going to go all in more, and they're going to start believing there's something on the other side of that emotion. They're going to believe that there's something past the story of their past, because they're stretching themselves out of the known. And it takes a tremendous amount of awareness, repetition, information, model building, sharing, understanding, experiencing, to finally have a person get to the point where they just let go. And when they do, the body's liberated from the past, and there's a release of energy. And we now know that there's a formula to teach people how to do that. In fact, we're getting so good at it that the first 2 days, a day and a half sometimes, 1 day in certain groups of a week-long event is about retiring that past, finishing it. This is when the story ends. This is when they get over it. Now, the next 5 days, the person's ready to create a new future. And they're not going to have a problem teaching their body what it feels like to be in love with life, to feel like all their needs are met, that they're free. They are going to fall in love with it, and they are going to begin to signal new genes. They're going to begin to change the brain circuitry, the brain chemistry, their immune system, their gene expression, the telomeres. It's all going to happen. They're more of that future self, and they're headed to a future. Now, here's the deal, though. you got to be able to sustain that state when you return back to your life. That's the name of the game. You got to be able to, you got to bring the game into your life now, and no person, no circumstance, no condition in your life would cause you to feel the old way again. Because the moment you started feeling victimized, the moment you started feeling angry, you just returned to the old self. You disconnected from the energy of your future and you're back to the energy of your past. Don't expect anything to change in your life. And if you'd say to me, well, it was because of that person, I'd say, you're back to the unconscious program of believing that your outer world is controlling your inner world. Now, the moment the person starts creating effects in their life and they start having those synchronicities and serendipities, now all of a sudden, they're going to realize what they're doing inside of them is producing an effect outside of them. And they're going to say, oh my God, I'm more of the creator of my life and the less of the victim I am of my life. And I wouldn't create getting that health condition because I'm creating everything in my life. And now they're not victims. And so it's not something you get in one bite. You know, it's something you got to stick with. Of course.
For some people, what's more relevant for them is the things that are in front of them. I mean, if you're facing a financial challenge and you've lost your job and you have a loved one that it has been affected, these circumstances put us into a state of fear and a state of survival and a state of stress. Stress heightens our senses and causes us to become materialists. We're more locked in our bodies. Our attention is more on the environment. That's where the danger is, and we're always trying to predict the next moment based on the past, and we become locked into three-dimensional reality, into the realm of space-time, and there is a formula. There's a door out, and it takes settling the brain and body down and going against those strong hormones of survival, because in survival, if you prepare for the worst, there's better chances of surviving if anything less happens. But now, you start talking about dimensions and this veil between this world of three-dimensional reality and the world that is the invisible, the immaterial world, where, by the way, is a reality. People are more open to it. The conversations that I just had with a scientist yesterday, who's a prominent researcher and scientist, is asking those same questions, because we're not going to find them in just one area of science. It's going to take a greater understanding. So, we are dimensional beings living dimensional lives, and when the doors of dimension open to us, and we're privileged to see that, I think we begin to become less attached to this reality, and we don't have to die to have those experiences. In fact, there are latent systems in the brain that, once activated, cause you to get a glimpse of the unknown self, the part of you that you're unaware of, that is way bigger than what meets the eye.
So what are a few things we can do before we come to your events? What are a few things we can do to support our inner environment on a daily basis?
Well, listen, the first thing and the most important thing for me is knowledge and information. Mm-hmm. Knowledge is really power, and knowledge and information about yourself should empower you. It should empower the self, right? So when we learn about the immune system and all that can do, and we say, oh my God, you mean not every virus gets to me? In fact, no. And the more you understand that, and the more you coax your immune system into love and into love. I just did this little thing on our social media where I was talking about the inner army of order and what would be the signal you would want that inner army to get. And so we created this meditation, and we said, what would invincibility feel like? Signal your body and feel invincible. How would you feel if you had an uncompromising will, that you had more energy than you could possibly imagine? Show your body what it feels like, because it is that emotion of invincibility, that emotion of an uncompromising will to empower your inner world. And you have the intent of that's what it's for. Wow, get ready, because you're going to start creating a cadence and a rhythm where your body's going, whoa, what is all these new chemicals? What are all these new signals?
Right.
Hey, it's time. Hey. Now all of a sudden receptor sites on the T cells go, wow, we got some new signals coming from the boss here. Let's
Right.
open up all those T cell receptors. Let's go. In fact, we would love a little fight right now because we got a lot of time on our hands and we got all our receptors turned on. Oh, I mean, that would be a signal for your body. We also know that if you could just trade fear and frustration and resentment and suffering for an elevated emotion and truly open your heart again and practice doing that, you'll heal.
You'll heal.
You'll heal because, I mean, all healings happen in the heart. And we've seen some really incredible moments in the last year where people that were traumatized from childhood, that were abused sexually, physically, emotionally, that were suicidal, that had all kinds of health conditions, they came to the edge of that emotion that kept them connected to the past. And they were ready to give up in one meditation because they never had felt an emotion like this that they could remember, that it was so intense. And they thought about all the times for the last year that they never missed a day of doing a meditation, even when they didn't feel like it, or when they wanted to quit halfway through and they didn't, they went all the way. They thought about all those times that they went to that point and they went one more time.
Really?
And their words are always the same. And my heart blew wide open. And I look back at my entire past and I don't want to change one thing in my past because it brought me to this present moment. And I can see my betrayers. I could see the people in my life that had a hand in this. And I have nothing but compassion for them because now the person is no longer viewing that past from the same level of consciousness. They're viewing it from a place of love, of wholeness. And they see the greater good of all of it. And now their conditions, their health conditions, their endometriosis, their uterine tumors, I mean, whatever it is, literally disappears, and they have an incredible change in their brain chemistry. They're in love with life. They're off their meds. They're not suicidal. Why would they be? They're free. So it can happen in an instant when the heart is healed, and everybody gets the new signal. The body's out of the past. The body's no longer feeling the emotions of the past. And sometimes we got to come right up against that edge. That's the great moment.
You know, we're always receiving information in our three-dimensional reality through our senses, and it's our thinking brain, our neocortex, that plugs us into three-dimensional reality. That's where we store memories. That's where we have experiences. That's where we learn information. This is the toolbox of how we navigate in three-dimensional reality. And so when the brain is in trance, when the brain has slowed its frequency of brain waves down, when we get beyond the analytical mind, we're more suggestible to information. And suggestibility is your ability to accept, believe, and surrender to information without analyzing it. And that's what programs us subconsciously. That's what begins to program the autonomic nervous system to begin to make a pharmacy of chemicals to match what our intention is. But we can't do it in certain brainwave patterns. We can't do it in stress and survival. And yet, when we learn how to slow down the thinking brain and begin to self-regulate and slow our brainwaves down, and our eyes are closed in a meditation, and we're not getting up and eating and smelling and tasting and feeling, and music is filling the space of the environment around us, our inner world starts becoming more real than the outer world. And as our brainwaves slow down and we can allow our body to feel safe enough to rest almost in a light sleep and keep our mind awake, there's a door. And that door then, by shutting down the neocortex, you're shutting down the memory bank of the known self, and you're losing track of your three-dimensional reality. You're losing track of space and time. Well, now you're still suggestible to information, but the information is not coming through your senses. The information is coming from frequency, because all frequency carries information. So teaching people how to go from a narrow focus on a danger, a threat, on the three-dimensional reality, where we're habituating into this, what's called convergent focus, teaching them to broaden their focus and open their awareness and take their attention off of everything material. When they do that properly, that vacuum, that place where there's nothing physical or material, is where frequency exists. And so the fundamental question is, how much of your waking day do you put your attention on the material world, on matter, and how much of your waking day you put your attention on energy or frequency. Well, the research shows that if you keep putting your attention on it, that unified field is going to begin to organize your nervous system into more balance and more coherence. And when you shut down the thinking brain and you can stay conscious in your subconscious mind, a little radio receiver in the back of your brain called the pineal gland becomes activated, and it will begin to pick up frequencies, and it will transduce that frequency, descramble that frequency into profound imagery. And the imagery that you experience causes you to become more conscious in that moment. In other words, you're having a full-on sensory experience without your senses, and the information that your brain is processing tends to be more real than the three-dimensional reality you live in. You're at a greater level of awareness, a greater level of consciousness, and you get a hint about who you are when you're not your personality or identity. And religions and cultures talk about this transcendental moment for thousands of years, and that's the moment there's an arousal in the nervous system. And we have the research to show that the arousal is not little. The arousal is huge. And the arousal isn't creating fear or aggression or anger or pain that we normally feel when we're in stress and survival. That arousal puts the brain into what's called a high beta brainwave pattern. The arousal we're seeing is a gamma brainwave pattern that is so coherent, that is so organized, that is so amplified, that the only way we could describe what the person is experiencing, and they will use these words, they were in ecstasy, they were in bliss, they felt connected, they felt pure love, and they felt it in every single cell of their body. That experience inwardly is reorganizing circuitry in the brain, and it's sending a signal to the body, but it's not chemical, it's electrical. The person is getting a biological upgrade because information is reaching every cell of their body, and it's the only when they can slow down the thinking brain and the autonomic nervous system, which controls and coordinates all the other cells and systems in your body, is now getting a very, very organized, very, very fast frequency pulse, and it's affecting the cells to emit more light and information. And all of a sudden, the person gets a biological upgrade. Now, when they come back to their senses, remember, we don't see things how they are, we see things how we are. You have one of those moments, and you come back to three-dimensional reality, some conditioning, some limitation, some belief is going to be removed, and you're going to have a broader spectrum of what has always existed, but you didn't have the brain circuitry to perceive it until you had an inward event like that. That changes the game for everybody.
But if I kept telling you, you need this product, you need this drug to feel better, to look better, to be better, let's appeal to your lack, and if you buy this, it'll make that feeling go away, and you try it for a while, then the feeling doesn't go away anymore, you got to try something else. And now watch the news and listen to all that information. It's telling you you're limited, you're limited, it's something out there that's going to get you. There's nothing wrong with this, but if you're constantly saying it's traffic, it's the news, it's politics, it's my ex, that's making me feel and think this way, then you're subconsciously, not consciously, affected by your environment, and you'll be more affected by your environment. It's not a conscious process. But the more you say, I'm going to, in spite of the fear that we talked about, or the anxiety, or the frustration, or the aggression, or the hostility, or whatever it is, the pain, the suffering, instead of saying that I can't change that, you know what, I'm going to see if I can. Where can I find that information? And all of a sudden you find people that are doing it, and it makes sense to you. And you're like, well, okay, I'm feeling really anxious. Instead of taking something that's going to chemically change me, let's see if I could chemically change me without something out there. Let's see if I can make my own pharmacy of antidepressants. I don't know. Let's see if I can make my own pain relievers. Let's see if I can make my own chemicals that cause my immune system to get stronger. I'm just curious. Let's see. Now the person they're out of the bleachers and they're on the field. So they'll start believing that they can do it, even if they change it a little bit. And if they don't get it the first 3 days, but they've seen a testimony of someone who has, and you see that person who's totally happy, that was abused every day of her life, and they don't have the genetic disorder any longer, you're going to say, wow, that person doesn't look like a movie star. That person doesn't look like they're vegetarian now. That person doesn't look young and buff or whatever it is. They're going to look like a normal person. And you're going to say, I identify with her. I identify with her. She can do it. I can do it. Now, here's the cool part.
Yeah.
We've seen then when people do this with the same, stand on the stage and tell the story, that the person in the audience with the same genetic condition does it in a shorter amount of time because the 4-minute mile's been broken. Yeah, it's evidence. So now evidence becomes the loudest voice. Why? Because it's in testimony. There's truth right in front of you. It's right in front of you. We had a guy in Dubai that he was in a wheelchair with this tumor in his spine, and the doctor sent him home to die. He came across my book like a week before. They got him.
Which book?
Becoming Supernatural. And then he read the book, and he somehow got in there. Someone gave him a spot. He was in a wheelchair, stage 4 cancer, go home and die, severe paralysis, a limitation, crowding the spinal cord, the whole bit. Nothing we can do for you, all these pain meds, excruciating pain. 1 week after the week-long, his tumor reduced by 30%. I just saw him in Munich. He can walk. He's walking without his wheelchair.
Wow.
I mean, he's in a new experience. He's believing now in himself. And when you believe in yourself, you believe in possibility. You can't have one without the other.
So yes, of course, I have to be able to adapt. We've done a few online things for our community that went over really well. I've cut a bunch of new meditations just to sustain our community, to keep people understanding that the illusion of separation that happens through the senses and three-dimensional reality is amplified when we're in survival, and giving them the tools to understand that when they open their hearts and they begin to raise their energy, and they know how to do that, and they can connect to a community of people and begin to, in a very non-local way, influence one another in training more order in their nervous system, they will feel more whole, they will feel more oneness, they'll feel more love. And our research shows that you can do that non-locally. When you feel love and you are entangled or connected to, say, your husband, who I love, by the way, and you feel love for him, and you then hold the thought that for the greatest good, the greatest outcome for him, it begins to have a non-local effect on his autonomic nervous system. His heart becomes more orderly. So if I can we did some great meditations over the last month with over 15,000-20,000 people, all with the intention of going to a greater consciousness. And nothing happens in three-dimensional reality that doesn't first have an impression in the field. So if you change a pattern in the field, you can change three-dimensional reality, but you have to know the science behind that. So our attempt is to create a coherent signature that somehow produces changes in three-dimensional reality, and you got to be good at it. And it's not the number of people you have that are producing a lot of energy. It's the number of people that you have that produces a coherent signal of energy. And smaller groups that are more coherent produce greater effects than larger groups with larger energy that's entropic and incoherent. So, wow, what a great opportunity for us we can't rely on governments, we can't rely on so many of no one's going to help us in this situation. I mean, this is really us helping ourselves, and so yeah, collectively we want to do that. We're working with certain organizations to do a big, real life, multi-million person meditation, hopefully here in the next couple months.
Those people then, when they sit down to do the work, the chemotherapy hasn't worked, the injections didn't work, the radiation didn't work, the surgery didn't work, the diet didn't work, the yoga didn't work. This is now their end. They have nothing else to believe in but themselves. And they go all in, not 50%, not 60%. They're going all in. They have nothing else to believe in. Now listen, when they go a little bit outside the known, they went a little further than where they normally would stop. They pushed themselves to that next limit. They started believing in themselves that they could do it a little bit more. They finish the meditation and they get up and believing it's working more than working less. They're the person that's believing in themselves. That's why, because it's not the work. It's your belief in yourself, right? And then when you believe in yourself, you believe in possibilities. When you believe in possibilities, you got to believe in yourself. Who else are you going to believe in? So people make these great strides and their own personal growth is a testament to the living organism. The living organism, the species of human beings that's starting to believe, well, maybe we're not so as limited as we've been programmed to believe. Maybe we are more unlimited, and I'd rather throw in with that. And if you don't think your immune system isn't aware of viruses, it could handle any virus if it got the right signal, and if it was in a state of wholeness and your thymus was activated and your blood flow to that center was turned on because you decided to turn it on, and you decided to release those chemicals that suppress the survival centers in your brain because oxytocin does, and you wanted to stay there for a period of time and memorize that feeling, I guarantee you that thymosin would begin to signal those T cells, and those T cells would activate their T cell receptors, and those T cell receptors would be releasing immunoglobulins and antibodies that would block those receptors coming off a virus like you may not pass. I'm sorry.
As a species of human beings, we're facing ourselves. Wow, I mean, you for the first time in a very long time, you could see the Himalayas because there's less pollution in India. There's less fossil fuels being burned. There's less people, distracted, and it's just a time where we have to wake up and respect one another, to respect the earth, to realize that we are not separate from this reality that we're all experiencing, but somehow, in order for us to change that reality, we have to change ourselves and be very, very selective about the information you put into your brain, and make your way, first of all, in your life, but at the same time be open to new ways of doing things, new ways of thinking about things. I just know that my close group of friends and family, everybody's challenged, but they're meeting that challenge with a level of adaptability that says there's a solution. We just have to find it as a community, as a culture. So there's a time for human beings to really begin to wake up as a species. This is our moment.
Yeah, be careful because you're susceptible to it in that state. And listen, I mean, what a great this is. I'm doing this event next week called Intermission or Intermission. Like, why not just take a pause, break from the normal routine? Everybody's secretly dreamed about staying home from work. Look, they got it. Got exactly.
You should be happy.
They should be happy. Now, listen. Okay, make a choice. Okay, who do you want to be when those doors open up again? Retreat from your normal life, your normal routine. Take time and ask yourself, what is a greater expression of myself? Who can I forgive? How can I change? How can I love more? What is it that's stopping me from believing in my future? What do I need to learn about myself? Well, instead of mindlessly getting lost in all those distractions of social, awareness, why not get lost in yourself and literally get not only mentally rehearse it, but physically demonstrate it, become it. I mean, walk it, become it in your walk as it. See what happens for however long this goes. What's the worst thing that could happen to you? You get happy. I mean, so what? But those people who have fear, fear suppresses the immune system.
And so the more we watch and consume from a fearful point of view, I'm all for getting the right updates so we know what we should be doing.
Me too.
Not for it. Like, okay, get updated. You've got the information, which is powerful once you have more knowledge, but not consuming based on fear, worry, and stress. Because what happens when we're always consuming based on fear information? What does it do to our body? It hurts the business, right?
Well, listen, you only accept, believe, and surrender to information equal to your emotional state. A person who's not feeling fear is less programmable. But that information in fear programs the autonomic nervous system to an output. And the output is very specific gene expression. It's very specific things that happen to the immune system. So the more you change that, and the more you have the ability to alter that, the less likely you would be susceptible to it. Because the more you believe you're the creator of your reality, you would say, I would never create that for myself.
Wow.
And now listen, the game changes here. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody should just run out and start breaking social distancing and handshakes and all that. Listen, do all the right things, matter to matter, you know? Yeah, of course. And that's why when the thymus shrinks, as we age, elderly people have it's mostly fat tissue. There's very little immune function here. So they're going to be more susceptible. But if you understand that you can activate this center and it can make all kinds of wonderful things, it's better than any flu shot. I mean, why not take a chance? I mean, why not try it out do it for a month? I mean, every day, and yeah, get the information, study. I mean, I look at the news and see what's truth. I look for the right articles. But I'm also not going to do what's natural. I'm more interested in supernatural, and if I've seen it in evidence in 4 days, God, imagine if you did it for a month. I mean, wow. I mean, they've done studies in the 1918s where they injected people with bacteria and viruses from their mucous membranes throughout their body, and most of them never got anything. I mean, like, how do you know? Who knows?
Yeah.
We know the benefits of what elevated heart-centered emotions do. It strengthens your immune system. We know that. We know that there's non-local effects when you feel love. Anybody that you're in a relationship with or entangled to, it begins to produce non-local effects on their heart and their autonomic nervous system. So we created this crazy idea, like we do this meditation. You send somebody a text and you tell them in a video format, in an audio format, in just a written text, what you love about them. And it takes a moment for you to just step out of the program. And we've seen thousands and thousands of over 30,000 people now have done this. And take a person into your heart after you express the amount of love you have for them. When you start expressing what you really feel about them, we've seen people have the most incredible heart-opening experiences and then do the meditation. And when you're in love with someone, you want them to feel how you feel. That's why we give, that's why we nurture, that's why we care, that's why we support. And so the person does this meditation, takes the person into the heart, tells them what they love about them, and then that person who receives the meditation, it's their job to go and for somebody else. And Love 20, we've had way over 30,000 people be involved in it. We just released it out into the world. It's a 15-minute meditation. You can do it once a day and keep going. You can do it twice a day if you're inspired. But the idea is to create a network of love, and when we truly love other people, we're actually loving ourselves because we feel it, and it's for us too. So why not spread that instead of fear? So we're thinking of ways all the time to keep community connected and keep inspired.
Beautiful.
I love when you said all healing happens in the heart, and it doesn't seem like people teach us how to heal the heart from an early age. I don't remember media or teachers. I guess
parents, not even parents. I mean, I was saying that our thoughts do have an effect on our bodies and our lives, and I mean, I wanted to demystify that process, but now, I mean, it's such an amazing time. It's in an age of information. Ignorance really is a choice. I mean, there's so much out there for you to understand what it does do for you in the right way. Now, discernment is another issue, because you got to learn. But again, if you can get people to retreat from their lives and to remove the constant stimulation in their outer environment that reminds them of who they think they are as a personality, separate from people and the objects and places and all that information that's reaffirming your identity long enough to learn new information wired in your brain, and then give people numerous opportunities to overcome themselves, numerous opportunities to connect. Put them in a community where everybody's opening their heart. Put them in the community where everybody's striving to overcome themselves. Start having to be defined by a vision of the future instead of the memories of the past. Let's see what happens, and keep giving them more information and keep evolving the experience. Once they start breaking through, energy naturally moves back into the heart, and when it gets to the heart, it goes right to the brain. And now I've seen this. We just saw the most beautiful scans in our last week-long event. We had a team of scientists come and study us, and when that heart starts getting more orderly and more loving, it's like taking a big sheet and just there's a flood of energy right up into the brain, and you see the brain take this wave and it goes right into alpha, and the brain's getting a creative energy. It's information that's being driven on that, and the heart is doing that in so many ways, and the field around the body is expanding, and now there's energy to heal. I mean, so a person, if it takes them a week to get there, who cares? If it takes them a month to get there, who cares? Because I just saw a guy in Munich when I was on our last event, and I was walking through the park when everybody was doing the walking meditation. He ran up to me, he grabbed me by the arm, and he said, listen, in that last meditation, I came up to my edge, and the next thing you know, I had the memory of me being a child and being abused. And I remember the feeling that I had, and I saw that beautiful guy, and I just saw him from a place of love. And I don't know, I had a heart condition. I haven't checked yet because I'm still at the event, but I'm telling you, I feel so much better. I feel so whole. I feel like I can breathe again. I feel like that kid again, like that young kid, pure, clean. So the healing took place in his heart, and he had to just have a moment where he was surrendered so much that new information could come in that was relevant to him. And that information's in the field. It's not just in his brain. And that the act of learning the formula on how to suppress the thinking brain and get beyond the analytical mind, to reprogram, write a new story, record a new track, teaching people how to rehearse something new. When they keep doing it over and over again, the side effect of it is that the body naturally moves into wholeness.
That's it.
And the person feels another piece is added to their heart, and something else that was broken, fractured, missing is more integrated, and they feel energy there. And of course, when energy makes it here, now you're more selfless. You want to give. You're okay with you. You don't care what people think of you. You don't care what your enemies did to you. You don't want to lose this feeling. Yeah. This is who you really are, and you start figuring it out. Now, this is the beginning of unconditional love, because oxytocin, our oxytocin levels in our students go up 200%, and that's in a very short amount of time. So a short amount of oxytocin raised in the bloodstream causes a person to get to the point where they can't hold a grudge. You can't hold a grudge. Imagine, you feel so good. Why would you want to hold the grudge? You would want to free that person and free. You're like, hey, I'm great. You're not trying to be forgiving. It's the side effect of what happens to you biologically as a result of a person changing.
Sure, that's how we unify. And that transcends space and time. And we shouldn't let the conditions cause us to live in isolation and separation in quarantine. We can unify non-locally, and then let's meet at a greater level of energy, a greater level of awareness, a greater level of consciousness, and keep connecting to that field and see if we can produce outcomes. That's a great story to tell at the end.
Yes.
What's the 60-second version of what you do on a daily basis internally to visualize your greater future self, of what you want for your future to be, experience? Is there a process that you have? A brief process in 60 seconds or less?
60 seconds or less. I can make it less than 60 seconds.
Okay.
So, I ask myself, what is the greatest expression of myself that I want to present to the world today? Who do I want to be when I open my eyes? Let me become conscious of who I don't want to be. And let me become conscious of who I do want to be. And I want to become so conscious of who I no longer want to be that I wouldn't go unconscious to him the whole entire day. And if I fall from grace, I am going to give myself permission to get back up and continue. I'll love myself for that. And then I get clear on who I do want to be, and how I want to think, and how I want to act, and how I want to feel. And I rehearse it until I get to that point where I feel like I am that person. And then I just say, memorize this feeling. And then I do my best the entire day to maintain that inner state independent of the conditions in my outer world. And if I do it well, then we start seeing those synchronicities, the serendipities, the coincidences that cause us to believe more that we are the creator of our lives instead of the victim of our